pattern, okay? Yeah.
I wasn't very successful.
That's okay, but you did better, right? Except for 25. Sometimes things get you. Wasn't it almost like you put on some different glasses? What we call this is we call this a framework. Alright? Sometimes life can look a lot like this. Right? Like we're trying to be successful in all areas of our life, school and business and relationships and stuff with God, and it can be really confusing. Alright? It can be very like, where do I go? Where do I go? But if you have a framework to look at life through, it helps you get to where you need to go. Okay? That's kind of the lesson with this kind of simple exercise. So I've shared a little bit about one of my bosses, Charles Koch. He's worth about $60 billion. He's done a few things right over his career. But I've got another boss who is actually much more impressive. Okay? He's not worth $60 billion. He's worth over $300 trillion. Who's that boss?
God.
God Almighty. God owns it all. All right? Charles Koch, he's never healed the sick. He's never raised the dead. He's never taken 5 fish and 3 loaves of bread and fed 5,000 people. You know who did those things? Jesus. Jesus did those things. Does Charles Koch have 2 billion people in the world who follow him today? No way. Did he make the world out of nothing? No way. So yeah, can we learn stuff from business folks? Absolutely. I want you to read as many good books as you can. But the only reason that Charles Koch has achieved success is he's learned some of God's principles for success. All right, things like save your money, treat people the right way, serve others, all those principles. All right. So here's the problem, though. As we're trying to understand what God says, where do we go? Where do we go? We go to the good book. We go to the Bible. The problem is the Bible can be very confusing. You guys ever tried to read the Bible and we're just very confused?
Well, there's a lot of gray area.
It's very confusing. All right? You guys know how many books are in the Bible?
60.
Yeah, so it's like it's in the 60s. Yep, it's in the 60s. Do you guys know how many stories are in the Bible? There's a lot. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of people. But actually, the Bible has a framework too. Okay? The Bible has many books, but it's really one book. The Bible has a lot of stories, but it's really just one story. The Bible has a lot of heroes, but there's really one hero in the Bible. All right? That hero is Jesus Christ. At the end of Luke's gospel, Jesus is risen from the dead. He's walking the road to Emmaus with these people, and he actually teaches them. He opens up the Old Testament. He shows them, man, I'm all throughout the Old Testament, and then obviously he's all throughout the New Testament. The book's all about Jesus. There's a lot of messages in this book, but there's one primary message. There's one primary story. It's the story of God redeeming sinners. That is called the gospel. All right? The gospel is what we call theological shorthand. So in the same way that when we try to describe these business principles of like thinking long term and thinking about costs and revenue and thinking about all these, we just summarize that and we call it the entrepreneur mindset. Okay? The gospel is kind of like that. It is a theological term that describes the life, the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and then how that affects our lives. All right? So, as we kind of turn the corner here to spiritual growth, if our goal is spiritual growth and we just open up the Bible, like, okay, open it up. All right, Joshua 4, verse 15. And the Lord said to Joshua, command the priests bearing the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan. What do you do with that? All right, you open it up to Isaiah 51. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, you who seek the Lord. Look to the rock. Like, you don't want to just like open the Bible up randomly and just start looking around. All right, you want to read the Bible through a framework. All right, and that framework, we actually are told what that framework is in 1 Corinthians 15. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. All right, 1 Corinthians 15 says this. Paul says, I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures. Okay? A couple verses up, he describes that as the gospel. 15 verse 1, he says, I want to remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast the word I preached to you, unless you believe in vain. First importance, Christ died for our sins. 5 words is of first importance, is that simple gospel message. All right? So it's interesting to say, well, boy, that's 1 Corinthians. That's almost at the end of the Bible. How could that be the whole message of the whole rest of the Bible? Well, in the 10 or 15 minutes I have, I'd like to show you guys how that message of Christ dying for our sins is actually throughout the whole Bible. All right? So,